It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Almost ran out of the bump music there, the intro music. That was my fault.
We're having a last-second conversation there.
Yes. But welcome on in. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Last hour, a lot of discussion about Utah State women's basketball. Looks like they have completed their roster for this upcoming season. And Utah State men's basketball looking to do the same. Still a few spots that need to be addressed. Utah State football, some news there. It looks like the Aggies may be filling up their quarterback room. Former Boise State quarterback C.J. Tiller going on Twitter and saying that he has arrived in Logan, and go Aggies. And so we'll look at other players who the Aggies may be targeting. Also look at the NBA playoffs as they continue. And what's being proposed in downtown Salt Lake City for the Utah Jazz and this new NHL team. Also give an update on what's going on in high school playoffs, because we've got baseball, softball playoffs underway this afternoon. We've got volleyball playoffs tomorrow. We've got some lacrosse games going on tonight as well. It's a very busy night in high school sports. We'll update you on what's going on there, what the docket is for all these games taking place. And as always, if you want to weigh in, we'd love to hear from you too. 435-339-0321. If you want to chime in, be part of the program today.
Yeah. Obviously went over women's basketball, an entire hour of women's basketball, and I hope that's not the last time we have a conversation like that, because you really want to see this program make a turnaround. We've seen several different programs Utah State make some level of turnaround. I mean, we had women's soccer go from struggling a little bit with mediocrity, never really bottoming out, to, well, Mountain West champions. We saw volleyball go from, well, they kind of did bottom out, where there was like a 2-year run where they only won like 5 or 6 combined games, and they're on back-to-back-to-back Mountain West championships. So, and back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances. So, hoping to see, I don't know if we'll see as drastic a turnaround. I don't know if we're going to see Mountain West championships out of Utah State women's basketball, but if a lot of these girls end up, these women, I should say, if they end up, living up to some of their potential, right now it's a lot of freshmen that I think are going to have to play big roles. Like, I don't know how many are actually going to start, because you do have some veterans on this team that should be starting, that you would expect to be starting. But, I mean, a lot of young players. You got 6 freshmen. You got Gracie Johnson, who played a little bit as a freshman. She's going to be a sophomore. And, like, those are a lot of those players going to be playing big minutes. And that's really hard to have a team full of freshmen be good. Like, a lot of those freshmen can end up putting up nice individual numbers, but it's hard for them to be good. And so that's a bit of my worry with this first year, is how young and, like, freshman dependent it's going to be. As excited as I am about so many of these, it's not just Elise Livingston and Ajay we're talking to last hour, Ava Smith, another one, Carly Lott is another player that has a very impressive high school record. Every single one of these players looking like potentially really good players. It's really hard to be that year one. Even Mason Falstaff, as excited as we are about him, like, rank him as far as, like, the best players in the Mountain West, and he's, like, at least among, like, starters and rotation guys, slightly above average on, like, an objective perspective. above average for rotation players in the Mountain West last season. But he did that as a freshman.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room for him to grow, and that's why you're excited about him. It's hard for those guys to be that impactful year one. Mason was decently impactful, but he wasn't carrying the team. He was, a role player. So you worry about having an entire team consisting of a lot of freshmen who have to make really big impacts year one to get some victories under your belt. But I think there's still a lot of room for optimism, even year one. Mostly because, as we were saying last hour, like there's only one way to go for this program,
yes,
and that's up.
Right, yeah, and I don't think the expectation is that they need to be, first round bye in the conference tournament type of team. Would that be great? Obviously, but I think what the expectation is to be competitive. And if you do go with a youth movement, it's going to put pressure on these young players to put a lot on their plates. But you're planning and building for the future, and they may not be able to get a ton of wins, but they're going to learn and be competitive. I think that's what that a lot of people are asking, is it just be competitive and respectable, because that has been lacking the last few seasons.
Yeah, the key is be competitive and then make it through next off season with the roster, with the youth movement intact. Don't lose a bunch of these freshmen if they overperform to the transfer portal. Because if you do, then you just end up the same way that, Kayla Ard, because like in her second year they won like double-digit games, and if Westbrooks did that in his first year, we'd consider that a big improvement, just like it was for Ard. But then like you keep losing players to the transfer portal, and it's just a cycle that keeps going, and it's been happening for two different coaching tenures, where you have decently promising players and then they're gone. So Westbrooks needs to see that improvement this year. Be competitive, win some games, get hopefully double-figure wins, as close to a 500 record as possible, a winning record. Get as close as you can. Maybe you don't quite get there, but get as close as you can, and then survive that first off season with the youth movement intact, because that's the key. Keep these ladies around, and they will be fantastic players, I think, in the future. And so that's your year one. Make it to this time next year with all these players having had a good season and keeping them on the roster for the 2025-26 season.
Yeah, it's there may be some uncomfortable stretches here this next season if Coach Brooks really does go with the youth movement and have some growing pains along the way. But if the players can be patient, if the fans can be patient, it can pay big dividends down the road if the players are willing to stick through it and stay here through that development and let themselves grow and improve and be part of a movement going on for Utah State women's basketball.
Yeah, that's what you hope.
Yeah, that's what we hope. Other transfer news, as mentioned, C.J. Tiller, quarterback out of Boise State, visiting Utah State, appears to be committing to the Aggies. Didn't seem to be, official, but it seems like a pretty official text.
Yeah, he came and said he's landing in Logan and go Aggies. It's like, usually you don't see visiting players with that kind of language. It's still certainly possible he goes somewhere else, but I know the Aggies were in the running for him the first time around. So maybe he's just like, all right, I'm going to go to Utah State, be the quarterback of the future. Maybe he sees that future where it's like, hey, maybe I don't beat out Spencer Petras, but might still play, because injuries seem to always happen to Blake Anderson's quarterbacks, no matter how much he tries to keep them healthy. And, after the year, he'll be the QB in waiting. Yeah,
so that's great news for Blake Anderson and his offensive crew. And another portal news that we weren't able to get to last hour, Coach Jared Calhoun still has some roster spots to be filled, especially with the late announcement of Josh Aduje. And there's some reports that he may be headed to Oregon State. But besides that, there were already a few more roster spots that needed to be filled. And Jason, it appears that he's still targeting players out of the ASUN.
Yeah. Well, out of the ASUN?
Was that where's Youngstown State? Are they in the ASUN?
No, they were in like the...
Are they in the Ohio Valley?
Yeah, it was like Ohio Valley.
Okay, I got that wrong.
You had me really wondering for a second. Like, hold on a minute. Had to go check my notes again. Which players were they targeting? Well, it's relevant because it's one of his former players. I mean, there's been some people saying
Horizon League. Sorry.
Yeah, Horizon. That's what it was. Why isn't he going after any of his former players, like trying to bring them here to Utah State? And part of the answer was, well, most of them are graduating. The other answer is probably the most notable that he might consider trying to bring over here was his power forward from where he was earlier, DJ Burns, not to be confused with the NC State DJ Burns. And so this Youngstown State Burns, he's currently going through the kind of the NBA draft, like, getting that feedback, maybe considering declaring for the draft. Well, I mean, technically he has declared for the draft. Going through that process, they have until I forget when the deadline was. Sometime late in May, I think May 25th, thereabouts, there's a deadline to withdraw from the draft and still retain your college eligibility. So I don't know if he's going to withdraw his name before then, but he is currently being pursued by a bunch of different schools. And initially, Utah State wasn't on that list. Granted, reporting on Burns has been a little light as far as people saying where he's going and whatnot. But some lists that I saw recently included Utah State. They also apparently included Utah, University of Utah. But I think, especially looking at this roster as is, Burns would be a fantastic addition in a lot of ways. He's a big rebounder, averaged like 16 points, 11 rebounds last year. He's maybe a tad undersized for that position at 6'7", but I shouldn't even say undersized. Justin Bean was 6'7". So he's, it'd be weird because he may end up starting next to like Tucker Anderson, and Anderson would be taller than him.
Right.
Playing like small forward, but
so it's more about your physicality than
and
your size.
that's what Burns has. He's physical. He's athletic. He'd probably be one of the more athletic players in the lineup. He's able to play. He still kind of plays below the rim to some degree, but is able to get up and dunk it and play athletic and score. He added a bit of a 3-point shot. It is an ugly looking 3-point shot, but it works. He shot like 36% last year, so I'm not going to critique it other than calling it ugly. You don't really care what the jump shot looks like in college, just that it works. You worry about that in the NBA because they worry about mechanics and consistency and longevity. But if it works in college. That's all you care about. So
right,
he can come in here, be someone who can hit a three if he's open. He's not like Anderson who will just rise and fire even if you're like right in his face, or an Isaac Johnson who shows kind of that same potential. But he can hit a three if he's wide open, and that's a skill that you like to see him have, especially because he's got an inside game. So you'd hope to see him come here or somebody similar. But I think that's the next player the Aggies need to add. I was kind of thinking that Tucker Anderson was that, but as I watched film on him, as I wrote the breakdown, which should be coming out on Cache Valley Daily tonight or tomorrow, depends on how quick Eric is in reading it, all 1,800 words of it. Got to look at it before it gets published.
Yeah,
but
it's usually a good idea.
Yeah, sometimes I have to read it just to make sure that it still makes sense. But I was kind of thinking initially he would be a power forward, but I'm more convinced that he's a small forward type, which may create some interesting position battles for the starting lineup this fall between him, Martinez, and Mason Falslev. But yeah, the Aggies need to add some rebounding, a big forward. Maybe DJ Burns is that. I don't know. I hope so because he's a good player and a proven one. But there are other players in the portal that also fit that billing. So you just hope that Calhoun manages to find one of those.
And it looks like some players that they may have been targeting have announced or seem to be determined that they're heading elsewhere, somewhere else in the state, but maybe a little bit further south of us.
Yeah, they were both from the state of Utah, I believe. But they were, I don't know if it was ever officially noted, but well, I shouldn't say officially. It was all over the place that they were targeting Carter and Hayden Welling, who, I forget, they went to a school in Utah, I'm pretty sure. I forget which one. They're brothers. I don't know if they're twins. I think they're brothers at the very least. Carter Welling had a decent season. They were playing for UC Irvine last year. So technically the Aggies saw Carter Welling because they played UC Irvine this year, didn't they? I'm like 99% sure they did, especially because I was looking into him and I saw highlights against Utah State, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did because he scored a
Yeah.
layup. He drew a foul on Great Osobor. Yeah, Welling was a freshman. He's a center. Hayden is like a power forward, but he didn't even play.
Yeah, they lost. Lost by 10 to the Aggies.
I was about to say the Aggies lost by. Hold on a second. I don't remember this. Made it sound like the Aggies lost.
Yeah, sorry. No, the Anteaters lost by 10.
Yeah, but Welling played pretty solid for a freshman. 6'10" center, has potential. He'd kind of be along the lines of a guy like Braden Housley, where you bring him in, probably wouldn't play, and that may have factored into him not coming to Utah State.
Yeah, Carter Welling in that game had 8 points, and then Hayden Welling did not score.
Did he play?
He did play, played 12 minutes,
Really?
but was in foul trouble.
Yeah, Carter was probably the higher potential there. I think. Well, I didn't know much about Hayden. I mostly looked into Carter. Yeah, he probably would have been as I said, Braden Housley, where it's like maybe they play, but mostly kind of a stash for later down the line because he would have had some pretty good potential as a post scorer, a rebounder. I don't think he had a 3-point shot. I don't know if I don't remember looking that far into him, but would have been a decent pickup, but it's not. He's going to Utah Valley, so that's the long and short of it there.
Yeah, they're from Draper.
Draper, that's what it was.
No. Yeah, so it looks like they're headed elsewhere.
Yeah, you missed on a prospect. Like I said, there's a lot of good players you can add from the portal. You miss out on grabbing a third string center. That's not the biggest miss in the world. So the key there again is finding yourself more wings, and I think more specifically finding a power forward, because that's the one true hole this roster currently has. But then also just adding more wings in general. There are a couple of high school recruits that could that are the Aggies are reportedly going after. There was the guy from Senegal, I think it was. He was in the NBA Africa academy team. Diop, I think was his name. I forget how to pronounce his first name.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then they had another guy whose name I cannot even pretend to pronounce. He was from somewhere back east, I think. I'm suddenly forgetting his first and last name actually start with a K, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it. But he was like a 6'9" power forward type. So, yeah.
8968 texting in. The biggest problem that Jerry Finkbeiner had, I guess this is referring back to Utah State women's basketball. Biggest problem that he had was as a coach was keeping players on his team. Yeah, he had a bit of a string there where he would develop a player who would be great, like all conference type player, but then she would leave. And the next year, he'd have somebody else play a similar role, and then she would leave.
Yeah, he had a really good streak of getting good players in. He was very good at recruiting internationally. Had a lot of Australian players. That seemed to be one of his favorite places to go and recruit from. Got some pretty solid players. Even recruited some good local players. Some of whom actually did stick around, but they couldn't keep a whole roster together. And yeah, that was a big problem. There were a lot of really good players that I remember. A couple of them stuck around. I remember 2 players that were here like all 4 years. But the entire roster would shift around them.
Yeah.
So it just ends up hurting the whole team.
That was a precursor to what we see today. Back then, it was like, oh my gosh, what is going on at the roster? Now it's just everyday occurrence.
Oh yeah, everyone does this.
Yeah.
Everyone replaces 11 players on their team.
By the way, just another interesting note for Mountain West basketball, the NBA has released its draft combine list of players who are invited. And there are a couple of familiar names on that list out of the Mountain West Conference. Neek Clifford out of Colorado State.
Who apparently is just, I thought he was maybe coming back, but I guess he's just straight up going in the draft and not coming back.
Yeah, he's pursuing that. And JT Toppin out of New Mexico, who is still...
He's in the transfer portal.
Keeping his college eligibility viable.
So that's the thing. I think Clifford may end up being the only one who stays because apparently he's just gone all in on that. Everyone else that I think is entered the NBA draft out of the Mountain West, granted, most of them have transferred away anyway because it was Lamont Butler, Ogbo, somebody else, I think. Well, technically Osibor. It's like all of the ones who have entered the draft as far as like preliminary, retaining their college eligibility, they're all leaving their school anyway.
Right. A couple of players the Aggies have faced from their non-conference, like Jonathan Mogbo from San Francisco. Zach Edey, of course, from Purdue. Not very many players out of the Mountain West, though.
Yeah, not too many. Getting into the combine is actually a fairly big deal. It's most of those players of the combine are going to get drafted, or very likely to get drafted.
And probably the player that's making the most news is Bronny James, who was being invited. Though
get invited to the combine?
He has no business being invited to the combine.
No, he doesn't.
But
that's bull. They didn't invite Great Osibor.
No. Nope.
They invited a kid from BYU, Jackson.
Though I don't know if Osibor is declared for NBA eligibility either.
He did. That was part of his announcement, is that he was declaring for the NBA draft.
Oh, he did? Okay.
I don't think he's actually pursuing that anymore. Maybe he didn't even. Maybe at this point he didn't even apply to go to the NBA, try and get to the NBA combine. But I would assume he would have tried.
Yeah.
I'd actually be surprised if he, for some reason, decided to forego that, because he said he was going to explore that. So, in the end, I didn't expect him to actually go into the NBA anyway this year, because he's got a lot more he needs to work on. So, and I think
if he spends one more year in college to refine several aspects of his game, he goes from maybe you'll make it deep in the second round to you'll probably be a first round guy.
Yeah, if he gets like a 3-point, if he pulls out a 3-point shot, which we've seen guys, they find a 3-point shot and become viable 3-point shooters like within a season. I mean, Justin Bean did that, and that basically got him into the NBA for a little bit, because he became a solid 3-point shooter his final season. Maybe Osibor can do that. That would, I think, probably get him drafted. But we'll see, and it also depends on if he actually has a good season at his next school, because if he ends up being a role player, we've had this conversation before, that might end up killing his pro prospects a little bit.
All right, guys, take another time out here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, we'll talk more about the NBA, their playoffs, first round. There's still some teams in the first round. Many others are advancing, so we'll give you an update on that.
Subscribe to the podcast or else.
Yeah, that's right. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, then you can't listen anymore.
You can't text in the show.
You can't stand in the circle.
Yeah.
Circle of friends. Cancun on 3.
Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat and the Allergy Clinic now have an office located inside the Miller Medical Building in Tremonton. Every Friday, Northern Utah's premier ear, nose, and throat medical physicians and staff will provide Box Elder County a better option to be seen. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat and the Allergy Clinic are now located in Tremonton. Save time, schedule your appointment today. Go to CacheValleyENT.com. That's CacheValleyENT.com for details. Most insurance products, including SelectMed, are accepted.
Are you getting overwhelmed by decisions regarding Social Security? Adams Wealth Advisors is here to help you secure your financial future by helping you navigate the complexities of the Social Security system. The team of experts at Adams Wealth Advisors is ready to guide you through the process and tailor a custom financial plan that fits your goals and aspirations. With Adams Wealth Advisors, it's not just about managing your wealth, it's about empowering your future. Call 752-1702 or search online for Adams Wealth Advisors to schedule an appointment with a Social Security expert today.
It's graduation week, the fourth and final week of Blue and White Days at Locker 42. Celebrate with sale prices on Aggie alumni apparel, Aggie tumblers and bottles, license plate frames, coolers, diploma frames, bandanas, car flags, and more, all with USU Aggie logos. Check Locker 42's Instagram for daily flash sale items and weekly prize drawings. The final week of Blue and White Days at Locker 42, 14th North next to Little Caesars, and the flagship store downtown at 36 South Main, Logan.
Thank you for voting in this year's Best of Northern Utah contest, presented by the Cater Shop Menswear Store. A record 816,000 votes were cast this year, and over 1,500 businesses were nominated. Soon we'll announce the gold and silver winners, and you'll be able to pick up your own free copy of the Winners Magazine. Please support all of our local businesses and shop local. Local business is the heart of our community. Thanks again for your support in this year's Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
The Aggies, Jazz, high schools, even the Pee Wee's T-ball team. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, The Fan.
Hey, come join us on Saturday from noon to 8. Now, you don't have to be there for that full time, but from 12 to 8 at the Cache County Fairgrounds, we're going to be pulling off a big celebration, Cinco de Mayo, a celebration of Mexican culture, food, booths, music, live music, dancing. Come check it out. It should be a lot of fun. I know it's on the 4th of May, not on the 5th of May, but since it's on Saturday, the 5th of May is on Sunday, so we're holding our party on Cuatro de Mayo, but don't let that stop you.
That's Star Wars Day, Eric.
Yes, I have a special shirt to wear.
Is it like Star Wars in Spanish or something?
Yes.
El Star Wars.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's got like a big sombrero with
that like Obi like that is like
the
one
robe.
Of the, is a huge like inside joke with my family because one time we were doing karaoke, and I guess we got these karaoke CDs from some like bootleg or whatever, and it was the one song we were singing was like it was that Weird Al remix of American Pie.
Oh yeah.
The one about Star Wars, and like when it got there's a line about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it says Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we completely lost. I don't think we sang the rest of the song because there was already some interesting. I guess they probably just used like a speech to text program to just have it do the text because like there were minor errors here and there, but they got to that and it's just gone. So Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan, yes. Juan Kenobi.
Yeah. Kind of like our radio station.
Yes.
Juan.
That's right. So May the 4th. So you can come down as a Star Wars character if you want and get some tacos. It's a good mix of both cultures, I guess, if you really want. Anyway, that's from noon to 8 tomorrow, Cache County Fairgrounds. So the NBA playoffs are underway, and had another team clinch punch their ticket to move to the next round and clinch their series, send another team home. That was the Knicks outpacing the Sixers, and before that it was the Pacers outpacing the Bucks. So Pacers and Knicks advance in the Eastern Conference. Bucks and Sixers headed home. Two teams with a lot of high-profile players out in the first round. And not just in the East, but you look across the playoffs, the NBA playoffs, you look at a lot of these teams in the first round that are out. There's a lot of star power that's no longer involved in these playoffs anymore.
Yeah, in the West, you got Kevin Durant and LeBron James. Out in the East, Giannis, Joel Embiid.
Steph Curry.
Yeah, Steph Curry. Well, he didn't even make the playoffs.
No.
So. Yeah, a lot of your biggest stars over the last 5-6 years are out, and so you're kind of got a newer generation of stars. I mean, in the West, it's Anthony Edwards. I mean, Nikola Jokic, he's been, on par with, obviously, Giannis, well, even above, because obviously he's got multiple
times
multiple MVP awards and a championship last year. So he's still kind of part of that. I don't want to call him the old guard. It's like the recent guard.
Yeah.
But we've got a new guard. Jason Tatum, he's with the Celtics. He's been around but never really joined the big kids club mostly because of struggles in the playoffs and a lack of being truly being in the MVP conversation. I know everyone in Boston keeps telling everyone he's in the MVP conversation. It's like, a dark horse MVP candidate, Jason Tatum's like, no, he's not. Like, respect for Jason Tatum, except for the fact that he spells his name wrong. But
how else should you spell Tatum? Just kidding. But this is clearly an opportunity for him, the Boston Celtics, to be the front runners for the Eastern Conference representative, if not win the whole dang thing.
Yeah, and they absolutely laid waste to the Heat. Like the Heat were, they've made it pretty far in the playoffs the last several years. They got that Heat culture they won't shut up about. But the Celtics, more than anybody, just had their way. Like, I don't think there was a single series that was any more of a blowout than what the Celtics did to the Heat. Even though it was a 4-1 series, like it was less of a series than OKC going 4-0 over the Pelicans or the Timberwolves going 4-0 over the Suns. Because some of those games are actually really close.
You're right.
Celtics just plastered the Heat.
Yes.
In there, I think like 3 of their 4 wins were just complete blowouts. Like not even blowouts, like utter blowouts, like embarrassing, turn the game off and watch a different one kind of blowouts.
You have another opportunity for, I guess, a young, fresh face of the NBA to advance while sending seasoned, proven veterans, sending them home. And that's the later game tonight with Dallas and the Clippers. Because the Mavericks lead the series 3-2, and Game 6 tonight is in Dallas.
Yeah, and it's, Luka's really trying to get some playoff success because I don't think they've really had any. Did they make the Western Finals one year? I'm trying to remember if they did that or not.
That's a good question.
But they've really struggled. And they've got, it'll be an interesting matchup, whoever wins this, because you have a Thunder team that they'll, that's a 4-5. They'll play the 1-seed Thunder, and it's like, you feel like the Thunder may be vulnerable. I know they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's another up-and-coming star who's looking to earn respect by making a deep playoff run. But young teams in the playoffs tend not to be able to make those deep runs. It is pretty rare. Heck, I think the last young team we actually saw make a run, funnily enough, was the Thunder when they had the young Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this Thunder team will do the same thing. Maybe there's something in the water out there in Oklahoma City. Who knows? The Oklahoma water made me, so I don't know. I come from, not necessarily around those exact, but I was more eastern Oklahoma. But, yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. Whoever comes out of this series, it looks like the Mavericks have the advantage. They're like 8-point favorites to win this game at home. It's a 3-2 series. There's a chance they could potentially blow it. It's one of our pick 6 lines. If any of these teams up 3-2 blow it. None of them have yet. We've had a couple of these series get closed out. But, yeah, it'll be an interesting second-round matchup, whoever the Thunder end up playing. It'll be a series, the thing I'm going to keep a close eye on, just to see how well do the Thunder pass that test. Do they pass that test? And then they'll have to face a very difficult matchup, whoever wins out of the Timberwolves Nuggets. And you bet your butt I'm going to watch like every single game of that series that I possibly can.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that one. So, yeah, you look to survey the landscape, and the Nuggets are probably right now the team with the most recognizable veterans that are still alive.
Yeah. Funnily enough,
Pacers are a bunch of young up-and-comers or not very known names. Knicks have some young guys. Thunder, clearly a bunch of young talent there. Timberwolves, yeah, Karl Anthony Towns has been around for a little bit. So has Mike Conley, but they haven't really. The Timberwolves as a franchise, it's been a while since they've been deep into the playoffs.
Well, a lot of those players are still guys who didn't make it deep in the playoffs. Like Rudy Gobert's never been deep in the playoffs. I don't think Mike Conley has. I don't know if he made it any deeper than the Jazz did when he was with the Grizzlies.
I think one year they made it to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, that's possible. But like Anthony Edwards is the guy that's driving that train for them.
Yeah.
So you do have young stars on each of these teams. Jalen Brunson with the Knicks, Tyrese Halliburton with the Pacers, mentioned Jason Tatum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards, and Nikola Jokic. Depending on which of the Cavaliers Magic they're actually playing right now in a Game 6, Cavs trying to close out that series. You got Donovan Mitchell. He's kind of been in the playoffs. He's had some big playoff moments, but not been deep. Paolo Banchero, he's trying to make a name for himself from year 2.
Yeah, Banchero and the Wagner brothers. That's a young up-and-coming roster.
Yeah, and of course, both those teams are either of those teams. Whoever makes it is probably going to get killed by the Celtics, but who knows?
Yeah,
but I think right now, if I had to make a prediction, I think whoever wins the Timberwolves Nuggets series advances to the NBA Finals, and it's probably going to end up being the Celtics. I don't know if anybody in the East at this point can match up with the Celtics.
So let me ask you, Jason, is the final games maybe the first round might be over by tonight? Who knows? There's still a chance if the Magic and Cavaliers series, or even the Dallas Clippers series continues on. But let's assume, for argument's sake, because I don't think it really matters if the Cavaliers or Magic. who comes out of that for the sake of this question I'm going to pose to you. But do you prefer what we're seeing right now unfold in these NBA playoffs where the young faces of the league are winning in the playoffs and you're likely to see a bunch of these newer faces rise to the top? Or would you prefer to see the familiar faces, the people that we've seen for many years compete and the high-profile stars of this league in the playoffs? And because they're not there, are you less interested as it continues to unfold?
I'm almost more interested, like, as far as like who I've been personally rooting for in each of these series, they've largely won. Like, I wanted the Knicks to beat the 76ers. I wasn't sure who I wanted to win, Pacers, Bucks, but, you know, Thunder advancing, the Timberwolves beating the Suns. Like, I wanted to see all that because I do want to see new players. And I know the Nuggets are the repeat champions, but they're still relatively new as far as they're not
They're not part of the American dialogue about top teams in the NBA.
Well, just the top names, the
right.
LeBrons and KDs and all that. And one of the things, I'm not the only person to say something like this, but like one of the biggest problems with the NBA is this hyperfixation on like three players and the complete inability to have intelligent dialogue about anybody not named LeBron James or Steph Curry. And hopefully it'll be better for the sport in general that you have to talk about a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Talk about him as like, maybe a potential like legit MVP candidate. Acknowledge that, hey, Rudy Gobert actually is good at defense. He's probably about to win another Defensive Player of the Year. Look at a Tyrese Halliburton or a Jalen Brunson. Yeah, Brunson's only 6'2", but maybe he can do something. Maybe Donovan Mitchell can do something. He's 6'1". He's even worse, Eric. Apparently. Can the Celtics? I know they're kind of part of the where they're one of the older teams. And they've had a lot of franchise success, but they haven't been in it for a minute, and they've got young stars. Jason Tatum's not really young anymore, but I like that we're seeing some new faces come around. Like, that's part of why I kind of hope the Timberwolves end up going to the NBA Finals. We'll see them or the Thunder. I don't really have a big preference who, because I want to see new teams in the finals. Like, Celtics, Timberwolves, heck, maybe even Knicks, Nuggets, or Timberwolves or whatnot. Just, I want to see new faces in there because to me that's just more interesting. Like, to me, I feel like the worst thing that could have happened to the NBA was having those 4 straight years of Cavs, like, Warriors. That was just detrimental to the NBA. I know some people, like, watched it, but I feel like it just kind of killed a lot of the, you're trying to get casual interest in the NBA.
It's huge for ratings.
Yeah, it's
you had two rivals back to back to back, just going at it. Who's going to get it this time?
It gets boring, though.
Right. It's a cheap, easy storyline that that happens all too often on national outlets, and they're not taking the time to develop other interesting storylines, and that's why when you listen to national talk radio, they'll always talk about the Dallas Cowboys, who, for what reason, what level of success have they had to earn that much talk? They haven't. You always hear about LeBron James. You always hear about Steph Curry. They'll kind of, it's like a toilet. They always circle around the same crap, and they don't take the time to develop and discuss these other exciting things that are happening. What Halliburton is doing in Indianapolis is fascinating. The success they've had in the regular season. They hosted the All-Star game. He was a star there. It's Rick Carlisle is having a bit of a renaissance again with their success. They just took down the Bucks, who are a very good team, though no Giannis Antetokounmpo. But there's a lot of young talent in this league, and I'm with you. I'm actually very excited about these playoffs because I know there are good players and there's other good teams that have been doing well, and it's refreshing that for the first time since 2005, we don't have Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, or LeBron James in the second round.
Yeah,
I think that's refreshing.
Like, a lot of times I had this kind of reverse of what maybe other people do, where maybe they don't watch a ton of the first or second round. There's just so many games, it's hard to keep up with them. But then you get to the later rounds or the finals and they tune in. But for me, a lot of those years I did the opposite, where I tune in for as many first and second round games as possible, and then you get to the finals and it's LeBron James and like Jimmy Butler in the Heat, and I'm like, man, I don't care. And I don't think
I've seen this movie.
I don't think I watched a single game of the Heat Lakers finals or any of the games in like the last 2 Cavs Warriors finals. I don't care. I just don't care. Like everyone says, you're supposed to care.
The big question is, will America care? Will viewers have the same attitude that we do? Because the NBA will look, numbers are down. We didn't have our old stars in there again. We need to highlight the stars and highlight these main few guys to make them the face of the league.
And that's the fault of the media and the discourse. Like, if you can't get hyped for your young stars, your league is broken. If you can't get hyped for watching Nikola Jokic, I'm sorry. Just leave. You clearly don't enjoy basketball. Because there are way too many people, and even those among the media, they don't actually like basketball. They like soap operas.
Yes.
Go watch daytime television.
Yes, they do prefer soap operas over actual the X's and O's and the talent on the court.
Because the people that I respect as far as their actual basketball minds, who are way smarter in terms of basketball than I'll ever be. And you hear them talk about basketball and analyze the games. There is so much going on with these teams, and there is so much to be excited about. But if all you want to hear about is what Steph Curry and LeBron James had for lunch yesterday, then just stay out of NBA dialogue. Go be a celebrity hunter. Like, I get it. People are interested in that, and that's fine. But don't pretend that you're an NBA fan. If you say, the NBA is boring because LeBron James and Steph Curry are in the playoffs. No, the playoffs are immeasurably better. Like, this is going to be one of my favorite playoff, runs of the last 4 or 5 years. Because there are so many great players. There are interesting series, fresh blood. Finally get to move on from guys, as much as I have enjoyed watching Steph Curry and LeBron James over the year, believe it or not, I don't hate either of those players. But I don't want to get stuck on those players because those guys are going to retire. And then what happens? If you can't find a way to talk about your young stars, it's just no point.
All right, we'll take another time out here in the Full Court Press. Love to hear your opinion on that. Do you, the lack of these familiar stars as we move into the second round of the NBA playoffs, does that make it more interesting to you to watch these younger, up-and-coming players, or does it make it less interesting because those familiar stars aren't there anymore? 435-339-0321. And also because of there's a number of stars out of the playoffs, are any of these players worth targeting by the Utah Jazz as they try to improve their roster? We'll discuss on the Full Court Press next. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Treat your mom with nothing but the best this Mother's Day. The Elements Restaurant is serving a delicious brunch buffet complete with slow-roasted prime rib and pork loin carvings, seafood, chicken, and more. Don't forget made-to-order omelets, hot pancakes with maple or coconut syrup, sausage, bacon, crepes, and more delicious dishes, including a full dessert bar. Because she's special, treat mom to something extraordinary. Mother's Day brunch from Elements, Sunday, May 12th from 11 to 2. For reservations, call 750-5151. 750-5151. Buffet will be located inside the Riverwoods Conference Center.
Right now, there are local job openings for journeyman electricians starting at over $41 per hour. Then get full family health coverage and retirement benefits on top of that, plus 7 paid holidays and a $2,000 sign-on bonus. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is hosting an open house Thursday, May 9th to hire journeyman electricians. If you're interested in a high-paying career, even if you have no experience and are ready to start as an apprentice, attend the open house Thursday, May 9th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Hampton Inn, 207 North Main, Logan. Come meet the union and the contractors ready to put you to work.
Here's Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Warmer temperatures have both weeds and grass competing for space in your yard. Dandelions, thistle, clover, morning glory will all be kept under better control when you have us applying pre-emergence and weed control. At the same time, we can feed your grass to make sure it wins the battle and keep it lush and growing all season long. Regular visits from the lawn doctor will help your lawn be healthier and pest-free.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, at 753-LAWN. Follow them on Facebook or go to LawnDoctorCashValley.com. Now is the time to get your vehicle's transmission ready for those hot summer months, and AMCO can help. AMCO Transmissions is located at 75 East, 2000 North. They are the business you can trust. Their Safeguard transmission service is the industry standard. Kurt Zollinger and his team will replace your vehicle's transmission fluids, do an inspection, and test drive to give you peace of mind when you're on vacation. AMCO Transmission in Logan. Online at amcoutah.com. See store for details.
When you think about Mom, what you see is dependable, always there when you need her, understanding, caring, and definitely forgiving. She takes care of the kids, cooks, cleans, grocery shops, clipping the coupons to stretch your dollars further. She is an accountant, chauffeur, a tutor, a counselor, and sometimes a referee. She is a hands-on, micromanaging CEO of the house, who in some cases also has a second job. This Mother's Day, get her something special at Jarek's Fine Jewelry in Logan. Make it special, make it Jarek's.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. And you look at a number of high-profile players out of the playoffs in the first round. Does that make them potential targets to come to the Utah Jazz? Danny Ainge has made it clear he'd like to go after some higher-profile players to come join the Utah Jazz as they claim they want to start getting serious about putting a roster together in this offseason. So, any of these players that the Jazz should be going after?
LeBron James, Kevin Durant, sign them, right? Next super team. Now, in all seriousness.
Well, here's some names that will be free agents next year that are out of the playoffs now. LeBron James. Paul George might. We'll have to see what happens.
You just got to draft Bronny James. That's all you got to do to get LeBron here.
Both of those guys have player options. But Klay Thompson is an unrestricted free agent.
No.
Tobias Harris. James Harden.
Tobias Harris, there's links with the Jazz, which that would just be stupid. You have Lauri Markkanen. You already have
and he disappeared in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's like... look at Philadelphia the last few years. That was their guy. They chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. How'd that turn out? Like, Tobias Harris is a supplemental player. Don't bring him in to try and say, oh, now we're going to have our big three and whatnot. And he's getting a lot older, too.
You're right. He's very expensive.
Yeah, he's expensive. He's older. There's no reason to drop big money on Tobias Harris. It didn't work for Philadelphia or anybody else before. I know he didn't really make his big break until Philadelphia wasn't on like a playoff team. But it's like, just no, don't.
A couple other notable players out in the first round. These are those who will be free agents this summer. Kyle Lowry.
Lowry's like 38 years old.
D'Angelo Russell.
No. You've not exactly.
Jonas Valanciunas.
I thought you said they were going to be big game hunting.
These are players who are free agents at the end of the year that are out of the first round.
Yeah. You've only named like 3 actual viable players.
So then you look at other players who might be rostered and under contract, but other stars that are out of the first round that you pursue in other ways with future draft picks or other players on your roster that you use as part of a trade package.
Trae Young, Devin Booker have had rumors about them maybe being traded. Well, Devin Booker mostly because there are rumors that New York really wants him. I don't know if the Jazz try and trade for him. I like Devin Booker. Not as huge on Trae Young. Mostly because Trae Young has not shown that he can be the best player on a team.
Right. Yep.
And have that team be good. So if you're going to trade for Trae Young, you should have just kept Donovan Mitchell. Like literally. If you're trading for him, you should have just kept Donovan. Yeah, I'm not as sold on any of the big game hunting that Danny Ainge could do because there's like nobody that is actually truly gettable that can take this team, the Jazz, to a championship. Because when you go after that guy, it needs to be the guy who's going to take you to a championship immediately. And there's just not that guy out there. There's guys who are championship level. Like there's fly out, pie in the sky type rumors about Giannis or Luka or even Devin Booker. But even if you put those guys on the team, you put Giannis on this Jazz team right now, they go to the championship? No, they might win in the second round.
Right. Do you try to go after a good player, all-star caliber player, but a young player who's still going to be, who'll help you become better, but you'll have years for that player to continue to develop and then add more pieces as you see fit.
But none of those guys are available because all their teams currently still believe in them and they're all fine. Like, I was hoping that Dallas would kind of collapse and that Luka would want out because he'd fit that, but they're doing okay. All right, they're probably going to win a first-round series. So, unfortunately, as much as you want to go big game hunting, Danny Ainge, that big game is not on hunting grounds you're allowed to be in, so to speak. You don't have a hunting license for them.
Well, it will definitely be a very interesting offseason for the Jazz.
Yeah, and down the line, it may be viable. Like, it's still an option. It's just I don't think this offseason is going to be the right timing.
Right, I think this offseason is starting to build a respectable team, and then the next offseason is when you can attract that more high-profile player who wants to come into a situation that shows promise, competitiveness, and that they see they can be the catalyst to something really special.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, another time out here on the Full Court Press. Speaking of the Jazz, Ryan Smith has some plans for downtown Salt Lake City. What does that entail, and how will that affect the future of the Jazz and this new hockey club?
Hola, amigos. Cache Valley's Cinco de Mayo celebration is almost here. This year, we'll be celebrating Saturday, May 4th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. Join us for a day filled with music and non-stop fun for the whole family. Treat your taste buds with mouth-watering dishes from dozens of authentic vendors, serving up all your favorite Mexican delights. We've got a variety of fun activities for your little ones, from bounce houses to climbing walls and so much more. All are invited, so come experience the richness of the Hispanic culture. Thanks to our sponsors. Members First Credit Union. Large enough to provide the services you need. Small enough to provide the service you deserve. Gosner Foods. Proudly serving the community for nearly 60 years with high-quality dairy products at their 10th West retail store. DD Auto Salvage. Turn your scrap metal and junk vehicles into cash at DD Auto Salvage. Presto Products. Apply for a career today at Presto Products in Lewiston. It's a celebration you won't want to miss. Cinco de Mayo, May 4th, starting at 12 noon at the Cache County Fairgrounds. Admission is free.
Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. I'd like to invite you to learn more about us. Since 1997, we've been Utah's premier one-stop shop for home medical equipment. What sets us apart at Alpine Home Medical is the superior level of customer service. We provide home oxygen, CPAPs, wheelchairs, scooters, breast pumps, and so much more. Come on down and get to know us.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Visit alpinehomemedical.com.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Quickly out of the Full Court Press text line, 9315. I feel it's out with the old, in with the new that's happening in the NBA right now. That can be exciting if your tribe, if they had their time. LeBron has done his time and on the way out.
Yeah, there's so many fantastic players and who are generational talents. Steph Curry, LeBron James, they were generational, but that was the old generation. It's time for Jokic. Victor Wembanyama is a absolute freak. And you've still got a bunch of guys who are still in their prime, guys like Giannis and Jason Tatum and whatnot. And you've got the, again, up-and-coming stars, Anthony Edwards,
Tyrese
Halliburton. Plenty to go around. The NBA has tons of stars, but if, like I said, if you're still hyper-fixated on the guys in year 21 or getting into their mid to late 30s, then you need to learn to move on from that and look at these young stars because they are really good.
Ryan Smith trying to remake downtown Salt Lake City for an entertainment district and wants a 99-year lease, wants different height restrictions that currently exist to try to remake the area around what currently hosts the Delta Center, where the Utah Jazz play, to make it a more viable area for basketball and the future hockey team.
Yeah, and I'm not smart enough, unfortunately, to know all the exact details of all this stuff. Means like Andy Larson was, he wrote an article on it. I think he was even a guest host on one of the shows down in Salt Lake. So he may be able to explain it better than I can, but it seems that he's asking for a lot of stuff, is the impression I get, which, unfortunately, again, that's the negative side of getting a team here, is that you have billionaires who act entitled for public money because they want to have their private play park and they think the public should pay for it, which is why Ryan Smith keeps going around calling this team a community asset. So it's the part that kind of sticks in your craw, even though we've obviously kind of been fanboying over the NHL coming, but it's not all
There's still a lot of work
kittens
to be
and puppies.
done.
It's maybe make the billionaire pay for his private business.
That's going to do it for us tonight here on the Full Court Press. Reminder, next week, only 1 hour between 4 and 5 o'clock throughout the rest of the summer. But we do appreciate you tuning in. If something breaks, we'll put it on a pod, an emergency pod, even if you don't subscribe.